Welcome to Behind the Citgo, where we pull back the curtain on the unseen truth of addiction recovery and talk about things most people never get a chance to see. I'm your host, Josh Torbich. Each week, we're sitting down with people who lived it, led it, and are still learning from it today. This isn't polished, it's real, it's raw, and it's noted in the faith and hope because we do recover. So whether you're in recovery, walking alongside someone who is, or just trying to understand what healing really looks like, you came to the right place. Let's dig in. Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Citgo, and I'm really excited about this. This is episode 1. You could call this the inception. The inception of Behind the Citgo. We've been dreaming about this for a long time, trying to get a platform for us to start sharing these stories. We've always talked about how interesting it is for people to kind of get a glimpse of the unseen world of addiction, recovery. People don't know about it, right?
That's right.
If you know. Those of you who don't know, I'm here with my dear friend Tyler Smith. We all were brainstorming, the whole crew and I that you can see here. We were thinking about who needs to be on the first episode for us to have this conversation. Who needs to be here? And I was like, well, who's the guy who's been here?
That's right.
Yeah. And since 2014, Tyler Smith in the flesh. Let me give you
16.
Tyler James Smith. Yeah,
Yes.
2016.
That's right.
Since 2016 has been here, right? You've been here. 2016, checked into the program.
That's right. You never could get rid of me.
What happened was that when you got here, I emotionally headlocked you. Yep. And then I kind of Jim Jones'd you.
Yeah.
Was it
Drinking
Jim
the juice.
Was it Jim Jones? I was like, if you leave, you're probably going to die. No, just joking.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's the thought in the back of your mind. And if you're not thinking that,
there's something wrong.
Yeah,
if
you
you're
might
too
need to check
overly,
yourself.
you don't want to approach your exit from rehab as too overly confident. Yeah?
Right. Well, I'll just say I never wanted to get in a hurry. So I slowed down as slow as you could possibly go. 10 years later, I'm still in rehab.
It didn't even look like he was moving and still no certificate.
That's right. That's right. I never did get a graduation certificate.
Neither did I, brother.
Yeah,
Neither did I.
That's only the best. It's okay.
But so the thing that we're talking about today, because of the name of the podcast, people are going to be curious. And this is what we went through. We talking about when you name a podcast and when you start trying to publish your stories, right? The stories that you want to share with the world, the things that you want to talk about with them, you got to come up with something that's catchy. So the thought was Behind the Citgo. What? So I'm picturing people maybe, I don't know if these are too big aspirations for it. Maybe they're scrolling through Spotify and they're like, Behind the Citgo?
Mm-hmm.
What?
What's that?
What is that talking about? Wait, it's in the category addiction recovery and they're scrolled through. They're like, all right, I got to find out what Behind the Citgo is. So the hope is that when they tune into episode 1, we got them, right? And then they never leave.
Got the hook. That's it.
They subscribe. They're steadily listening in to every weekly episode that we publish. We just said, where did it come from? And you remember Chad, my first sponsor,
That's right?
Chad used to come in. He used to give, when he came in, like, it was a thing. When he came in to share those talks.
Everybody came together. It was like someone bringing the wisdom from the outside into the walls of the recovery center to hear more about how to practically apply these things that we've just been talking about and recycling all this time. He would always put a different spin on something.
Yeah, he would always come in. He would come from such an intense big book, right? He got sober through Alcoholics Anonymous. I think any length recovery he had gone to, and he sponsored me for like the first 4 or 5 years of my sobriety. And I'm telling you, man, I learned more about myself through going through the 12 steps with him. I mean, it was just perfect. He was a no-nonsense type of sponsor, really diehard, but he would come in and he would do these talks for us for just the 10, 14 guys that we had in the program at the time. And he would say this thing, right? He would always say, smoking crack behind the Citgo. Somehow it would come out in the middle of the talk that he was smoking crack behind the Citgo. And I thought, man, this is before I even knew him. I was like, this guy smoked crack behind Citgo. I used to smoke crack behind a Citgo. There's a Citgo in Willow Springs where I grew up. My dude's house was 2 doors down from the Citgo that was at the corner. I would buy the crack, walk out of his yard, go behind the Citgo, and I would burn it down.
That's very first place you could get to.
It really was. It was truly, it was a rundown gas station. It was the very first place that I could get to. So for whatever reason, that thing just didn't leave me. Mm-hmm. So for the past 10, 12 years, oftentimes when I'm talking to people, flushing out a sermon or discussing matters related to the recovery, I'll say something like, well, yeah, when, used to be smoking crack behind the Citgo, because it's true. The thing just resonated with me and I never kind of let loose of it. And then I thought, well, what does that really mean? And talk about it. And what it really is framing up for me is the places that I would go to do the things that I was most ashamed of. Like behind the Citgo, I guess philosophically represents for me the place that I think of and cringe a little bit. Maybe if you're not in recovery or you don't have a history with some kind of substance use or, some type of effect like that, where you're transforming your life out of that place, maybe you don't relate as much to it. But I do, I remember thinking to myself, you kind of get these little snapshot images, picturing yourself in those states, places, conditions, right? And seeing myself in that state, desperate to get my next hit, and I was addicted to heroin and alcohol, but something about crack just made you desperate. Am I right? Heroin was an ugly, nasty detox whenever I didn't have it. Alcohol, same thing. But it was for some reason, crack, it was just the ugliest.
Yeah, like an immediate desperation almost. I didn't smoke a lot of crack in my history, but I injected it, break it down with whatever you can find. And then injecting it, it's like it has that same effect, but it's even more expedited to where almost by the time you pull the needle out, you're already trying to figure out how to get more in your body. And and it was the same when smoking, just maybe instead of 2 seconds, it was 20 seconds. But you're right, because with heroin or a lot of the other drugs that we would do, there's a couple of hours of time from the time you do it
where you're okay.
There's some relief, but
maybe crack, even a little satisfied.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
You're at least a little bit satisfied for a little bit. But there was something nasty about crack where it was just as soon as I ripped it, I remember smoking crack in crack house and I'd look around and I'd be pushing the stem that's dead. Yeah, I joke. It's like you haven't lived until you've accidentally loaded up a piece of drywall.
That's right.
Into a crack.
That's right. Or some pesticides into a spoon.
Yeah, because you're on there looking.
Exactly.
What I mean? You're stuck inside that place. I think to myself, and God has done such a great work in my life that it doesn't really have that drain on my spirit. But man, there was for a few years there where I would picture myself in that place behind the Citgo. I would have that image of it. And I'd just go, ugh. It would still, I would cringe a little bit. And it's crazy because it took me years to get past the place where it truly was something that I could throw out loosely. Something where it didn't have. Another small example is why did everybody in rehab want to watch Cops so bad? All they wanted to do was watch Cops, or what was the show that had just come out? And when I was getting into rehab in 2012 or 2013, it was
very similar to Cops.
PD or something.
Yeah, Live PD. That's it.
Bro, why did all of them, we're all sitting in here between us all, we got 10 years pending, right? Everyone in here got charges on them. I came into rehab with 2 DWIs pending against me, and that intent with the assault. Remember, even when you got there, I was still going to court for the second DWI.
You were driving only for work at that point.
Yep, I was driving back and forth. Yep. And then even that though, I would be traumatized. I couldn't sit there and watch an episode of Cops because I would just shudder at the thought of what I had done in those desperate places. So I guess when we thought about this, we wanted to go create the inception of this podcast, be able to share these stories to show the rest of the world what it looks like behind the Citgo. And you're probably a perfect person to talk about because yours wasn't a Citgo maybe, but you have your own version of the place that you would go to do the things that you're most ashamed of. You had your what's your Citgo?
Yeah, well, for various situations that I might end up in, I would say it seems like it's funny. It's always behind something. It's behind the gas station or behind the parking garage, behind the door in the bathroom. We're always shaded behind something as sort of a barrier to keep between us and what we know the world would see us as. And we know even in the moments where I was convinced that I could get out of it or that I could control it or that I could manage it, which we find through the process of recovery that none of those things are true. But even when I was most convinced that it wasn't that bad, something still told me I needed to keep it away keep that part of my life separate, private, because I was ashamed of it. I didn't maybe recognize that I was ashamed of it, but it came that way for me in the form of homelessness. So in the place where I ended up being behind something, it was behind this half wall on the backside of a parking garage across the street from a methadone clinic on 4th Street in Winston-Salem. And why? Well, it always makes sense when you dig into the context, because I needed a place to go where I could hide away from the world. I was homeless, but where I still had easy access to the resource that I was convinced was bringing me relief, like you said, which at the time was that dosage of methadone that I needed every morning just to get myself going, by the way, so that I could have enough energy to go out and find the drugs that would really make me feel something. So I was sleeping behind this half wall, behind the parking garage, across the street from the methadone clinic.
What year was this?
So this was in the year just before I got sober. So the end of 2015, very beginning of 2016.
Yeah, because I said 2014, but you got to the recovery center in 2016.
That's right, February of 2016. And prior to that, I had been sober clean, just without drugs, really not actually working any kind of recovery, for about a month before, because I went through a detox. I went to ARCA. It was in Winston-Salem. Went to that detox for a week. I had a little bit of an extension, and then I went and stayed in the mountains with my grandparents for a couple weeks, away from the world, away from everybody, kind of like there's this time between detox and getting into a recovery center where it's like a black hole. Anything could just suck you in and then you're done for. There's no way of getting out of that powerful gravity.
That's true, yeah.
And the black hole is your addiction. It's the thing that's pulling you towards the things you don't want to introduce back into your life, but it still has that pull on you, because when you think about it, your brain is romanticizing all those good things about the first time you used and right after you used. And it always seems to forget about what about 3 hours after I used, or the next day waking up after I used.
I remember my tolerance is so low right now because I haven't used drugs in a week.
I could make this much last this long.
I could imagine how high I could get just with the same amount I used to do.
It still always goes in a day. It never lasts more than a day, no matter how much I got.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's the methadone clinic across the street from the parking garage. That was your Citgo.
Right.
You laid behind that wall. You lived there?
Yep, yeah, that's where I stayed. And it was wintertime in North Carolina in the foothills. No. So I like to joke about, people say, why did you get sober? And I say, well, because it was January.
Because it was cold.
I was outside. It was very cold. And I'm waking up sweating every morning. How do you think that feels?
Oh, my
that was that. Oh my gosh, my life has turned to this moment.
So, you could talk about it easily now, laugh about it a little bit, but you felt the cringe thing for a while, right? Like there was something that like you would think about things you had done for a while.
Yeah, and even things associated with things. So like methadone, for instance, any MAT service in my mind was just, that could not be good for anybody, just because I associated it with it not being good for me in the way that I mismanaged my recovery at that point. It could have been a tool that I used to help me take the next step towards recovery, but it wasn't that. I used it as just a way to feel good enough to go get more drugs.
Yeah, see, and that's interesting because a lot of those times, like our process of how we experience things leading into recovery, that kind of shapes, if you're successful in recovery, it kind of shapes you as like a siloed thinker.
Yes.
In some ways is what you're saying, right? That there might be a certain expectation you develop with the people who are traveling programs behind you to say, no, this is what it looks like. Where in reality, you've been around for 10 years now. I mean, you've seen thousands of people go through our programs. I mean, thousands of people go through our programs, 200 beds we have, and watching those things turn over at least twice a year. But watching that take place and watching all of those faces, you've seen many people travel many different roads, many different pathways to find the same freedom that we all get to appreciate today. What's the thing about I felt shame until when?
That's a good question.
When do you start owning your testimony, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. When can you say, this is what I did, and you know what? I don't even have to cower behind it anymore.
Yeah, I think it is probably related to the way that you see others perceive you.
Okay.
So there was this this weird dynamic that I had with people that knew me in my addiction. And we see this a lot. This is very common, where I went to a recovery center. I went through rehab. I've been sober for X number of months. Let's say our program was 3 months at the time. And I was experiencing every day, all the time, and the effort, the energy, everything that I was putting into serving others, helping people, working hard, getting saved, following Christ, all these things that I'm doing. Whereas people that knew me in my addiction, all they saw was me gone for that 3 months that went by like that for them, because, well, they're just going to work every day. They're doing their normal lives. And, 3 months goes by like nothing. But for me, I was doing this really in-depth spiritual walk, and I'm learning new things all the time, and I'm having epiphanies constantly. And that's a time of your life that you remember so clearly. But when I look at my family and my friends, like those who knew me in my recovery, I'm going through that 3 months. And at the end of it, I'm thinking, why don't these people trust me yet? Why don't they see me and recognize all the work that I've been doing and how much better I am?
Don't they know?
Don't they realize?
Don't they know?
Right. And we make the joke about when your family comes to visit, you get in the car and you turn K-Love on as like almost like a signal of,
you're about to eat lunch and everyone's digging in like they always have. And you go, whoa. Let's pray.
That's right. Yeah, let's pray. And
like you got to show them how holy you've become.
That's right. Yeah. Right. And because they're not giving me the respect I feel I've earned at this point. Yeah. And looking back, it's 3 months. 3 months goes by like nothing.
Yeah.
It only meant something to me because for the first time in so long, I was doing something positive. But everyone around me was saying, yeah, that's how you're supposed to act anyways. All the things you've been doing for 3 months are finally the things you should have been doing for the past 10 years, right?
Congratulations. You're doing the minimum.
Exactly. Yes. You're finally being a decent person.
Yeah.
There you start there. Now let's go.
Strong work. Yeah.
Right. So I think it had something to do with me finally understanding over enough time why they viewed me that way, gaining enough wisdom to understand that, man, I just spent the past 7 or 8 years destroying their trust.
Yeah.
How could I expect that in 3 to 6 months it's going to be rebuilt and no problem? Everything's going to be fine. Enough time goes by where I finally have enough spiritual maturity to recognize that and then not place the expectation on them to trust me anymore. And it's funny how that works out. That's about the time when people start finally trusting you again, is when you stop expecting them to. There's no expectation.
Yeah. One of the things that you're picking up on right now is in the big book where it talks about we've reached a place in our process where we no longer wish to shut the door on the past.
Right.
And like that version does happen. For me, it's very close to what you're describing, but it was a little bit more deceptive for me. Like I would lie about pieces of my recovery process. Mm-hmm. Mostly by omission, but sometimes little things in there, like I'd slip in. And it really was because I truly felt weak and inferior and second, to everyone I meet. So like, I remember even when I first got there, it was so much easier to tell everyone, yeah, I'm here because I got a sports injury, blew out my knee. So it's like that part was true. I did blow out my knee, had a patella realignment, did it playing football. All of those things were true. But here's the problem. I was still doing drugs before I even blew out my knee.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That was just a convenient tragedy that happened before people really picked up on how bad off I was.
Right.
But it was like somehow soft, like I wouldn't look like such a piece of crap, or it sounded softer in the problem sphere to be able to say like, no, it was a sports injury, and can you believe it? They over medicated me, type of thing.
Right.
Where in reality, I was drinking like a fish, partying every weekend. Started using intravenous heroin before I graduated high school. It's weird to kind of say this when you look back on it, but the way it looked when I actually started becoming comfortable with who I was, my story became more closely aligned with what reality was.
Right.
Like the truth started coming out. And once that started happening, I think that I was truly able to embrace the person and appreciate, the point that it had brought me to, and this is the thing I'll say is like, there's no way God designed me to become addicted to drugs. Like, there's no way, you know, he didn't create me for that, because, well, I've been like really proud of what I've been able to accomplish for him since I've been serving him. Imagine what I could have done with him if I just stayed on the right track, you know, and did the right thing. But because that happened, he's completely prepared and equipped to use all of that mess for his good today. And that's kind of what I think I missed tapping into fully, because I couldn't appreciate the identity of what I look like behind the Citgo. And it truly is public perception for me too. Like, I picked up on a lot of what you were saying, that I had to become comfortable with the person that I was, and then truly believe that I was changing before I could laugh at the person I was behind that Citgo.
Right. It wasn't me changing so that other people would finally trust me or treat me a certain way again.
Yes.
It was me changing with no expectation that they were ever going to trust me again, just so I could take solace in the fact that I knew I wasn't doing more damage, creating more mistrust, or destroying my life any further.
I was doing the right thing.
Right.
Yeah, you truly found the peace that's there in doing the right thing. Right. And that is the true gift of what freedom looks like. Yes. You know, so when you're walking through with people today in their recovery process, it is a tense subject sometimes. And I'll be really blunt about it, but there's some guys that I sponsor with today where it's amazing. Like, I'll go through a fifth step with them, and we'll sit down. I just did a fifth step with somebody I sponsor, and they got all this weight on them. And dude, it's so heavy, and they feel so crazy bad about this stuff. And like, the way I always started off is, okay, you knew that your fifth step was coming. We're going to talk about this.
I'm smiling because one of my sponsees is in the room. Our next meeting is his fifth step.
Oh, well, good. This is a good precursor.
This is exactly
for him,
what I'm thinking about.
Oh boy, that's the drum roll, please. But you're telling him your next meeting is your fifth step. You know what's coming for you. You're going to have to confess that another human you trust. That's going to be me for this exercise. I'm your sponsor.
You picked me.
You picked me. I'm the person you trust. Sorry, you're going to have to confess it to me. But you get in there and they have all this weight. So the thing I always start with is, okay, that thing that you told yourself you weren't going to tell me, we're going to start with you telling me that. Right.
This is an exercise in faith.
It's going to tell me.
You have to exercise it.
You have to exercise it. Yeah. But then it's like they carry it so close, and then finally they come out with it. And you can tell in the fifth step when they finally just said, hold on. They just let it go, right? They say it, what they've been holding on to. And then you hear it, and it's hard not to have this kind of knee jerk of like, is that all? Like, is that what got you there? Like, that's what you were planning on not telling? Because they think it's like, they're holding this bag, and if they let it loose, all of these birds are going to fly out. And then we're going to be like, holy crap, how do we get all these birds back? No,
nothing new under the sun.
There's nothing new.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've literally been sitting in those meetings, and it's like, I just wish one time, don't you wish this? Someone would surprise me. Like, those fifth steps would actually rather me. So it's hard. And then there might be like almost a lack of empathy in some sorts. Not so much, but you're believing in this thing like, man, I hate that you were burdened so much by something that you'll be free from. And that experience was similar for me in my fifth step, that as soon as I got it off of me, I was actually able to start progressing through it, but it still held me captive in that way to where you can now own it. You think there's ever that risk of where you don't look as empathetic just because things at this stage, they kind of are, well, they were what they were. Right. And then to some people though, it's so big. Right. Like to some people it's so big. Does it look like a lack of empathy?
I think that I try to respect the way that it makes the person feel versus whatever the thing is. It doesn't matter how severe or minimal the actual thing is. What I'm mostly concerned about, like you said, is the way that it's been burdening them, and then just try to zero in on that. And instead of focusing on the thing they thought was weighing them down and drowning them so much, let's just focus on why that thing made you feel that way. And then sometimes step back into step 4 a little bit, and then see where the fears are coming back to haunt us, and are we still. Sometimes step 5 is able to expand a little bit further on step 4. And then I find that going into step 6, a lot of times people will go, oh, hey, here's I should have told you this in our last meeting. Here's one more thing I got.
Yeah.
Because I think whatever it was that we talked about, sometimes they do just give you the second worst thing and they see how you react. It's almost like, oh, just that?
Yeah.
And like you said, maybe there's a threat of a lack of empathy, but in some ways, maybe that makes them feel more comfortable the next time to come back and say,
most of the time.
oh, well, here's the thing that I thought you were going to judge me for that. You didn't at all. So here's the actual thing, you know, and then they see that too has no power over them anymore. And it is an exercise in faith. And it's something that can be a little bit maybe anticlimactic for them, building this thing up in their mind. But the truth is the truth.
There is something special there. There's something special about that idea of like, hey, what you think is such a huge deal really isn't.
Right.
And the stuff that you're thinking is really burying you right now in year 1, year 2 of recovery isn't even going to be a blip on your radar in year 5.
Right.
And that's just the truth, like from our personal experiences. So at some point, the stuff, and this might be a little stronger, but at some point, the stuff that you currently feel like you have to cower or shudder in front of, maybe even a little bit traumatized by, becomes the butt of some of your one-off jokes. Smoking crack behind the Citgo.
Right. There has to be some humor in some of this somewhere. We're not just going to be depressed about it all the time.
That's a good point. Yeah,
we're going to have to.
You better learn how to laugh at it.
Lighten it, right? Like, let's lighten the load. It's not that serious anymore. It was that serious.
It was that serious.
You're out of it now. Stop letting it have power over you.
That's what he said. Only people who are dying should be that serious, and even they have a better sense of humor.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah. When I think of this next step through the process, I always think about how reality TV works. And if we could just sell, we already got the cameras up, right?
Yeah. Hey.
But wouldn't it be like, look, in these facilities, though, that we have, if we could just sell that footage, like a Big Brother recovery.
If there was no privacy law or anything like that, or appropriateness, whatever. It would be the perfect show, the most engaging show. I can see people waiting every Tuesday night to watch it with their whole family. And I can't believe so-and-so. That would be the perfect reality show.
Oh, I bet so-and-so is going to drop out the program next week.
We had a resident years ago who used to talk about this idea that he had, and he wanted to call it Freehab. That was the name of the show. It was Nick. We want to have a show
called Freehab. Yeah. See, that it could make millions. Yeah. If only those stupid privacy laws,
man.
Yeah, didn't exist. The version of what we're doing though, we're the leaders of Christian recovery centers. We both have a very powerful story behind our recovery, and how we got sober and how we're continuing to drive these kind of results in our community. We're the only ones on the leadership team now who came through recovery. Is that right?
Through our recovery program?
Yeah.
In the senior leadership team. Yes.
Yeah, so we're the only ones on the senior leadership team. Tell me about what it's been like, and this is a question that I get curious about too. About half of our employees come through the recovery program. And we have, maybe about 85 or so right now. But about half of them come through the recovery program. But we weren't able to kind of cultivate leaders as quickly as we needed them.
Right.
So there is like a culture shock for some of them. I think about how much I find myself educating Mike Guzman on the do's and do nots of recovery interventions.
Right. Here's how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
Fast forward 3-4 weeks.
This probably isn't going to work out too well for you, and here's why type of thing. Makes us better or makes us worse?
Makes us better.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have a vast set of experiences to draw from now, and we've become okay with lowering our defenses and receiving from people who don't have the exact same background as us. Because early on, it probably was intimidating for the first people who came to work with us who didn't have a recovery background, but maybe they had a family member or they would relate in some way still. But I would see how, in some way, early on, we probably took things with a grain of salt. No matter what they said, everything was, well, we know really how this is going to, pan out. But there are so many things now today with the growth that we're experiencing, especially in the business side, especially, which you've done really well at expanding, broadening your knowledge and your understanding of those things, where I had to play some catch up, I came a couple of years after you. I was always a little bit behind, but introducing other people into your life sponsor, a mentor, somebody who's a retired business person who can teach you, watching YouTube videos, taking classes, you got a degree, all the things that we've done along the way. We've brought ourselves and our experiences closer to those people that we used to not want to take advice from.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, the people that work with us who don't have a background in recovery are doing the same thing. They're spending time with the residents. They're spending time learning about the programs and seeing how the mind of a person in early recovery works, so they can come closer to our understanding. And so we're starting out on opposite ends of a spectrum, but I think we're coming closer to the middle more and more, especially within the walls of Christian recovery centers. And it's starting to affect our community in ways where they're seeing the things that we're doing,
mm-hmm.
non-traditional techniques. We're employing techniques like a clinical program that we used to would scoff at. A small MAT component that we used to would think, no way with CRC. Way. We could never do that. But we still have all the faith-based and 12-step components of it too. So it's been a process of addition, not subtraction.
Yeah.
But I think everybody coming closer to a similar understanding is what's enabling us to find success from being able to grow at the rate that we're growing at. Because how many people tell us, man, at this rate, I can't believe you guys haven't collapsed. I can't believe your organization is still this healthy. How often does that come up?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. And I contribute a lot of it to like the early work in our systems. I was just talking about this other day with somebody, but I don't think we would have survived if we didn't kind of have COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID helped us take the time that we needed to refine systems.
Right.
Like we really started zeroing in on what kind of technology systems we use to organize information and to run teams and things like that. I don't think if we had that capacity that we could have kept up, the way that we did with everything. Watching as the progression takes place, it's kind of easy to understand our culture and how people they graduate through the program. It's not really a big deal when you hear inside of our culture someone's a felon or somebody used to do drugs. Yeah, there you go.
I'm a felon.
Yeah.
Twice.
Twice felon.
Right.
Yeah, we're working on the pardon.
Working on that, yeah.
If the governor is watching, I
could use your help.
We could use Governor Stein. Yeah, could use your help. But recently, they added me to a state campaign, Unshamed North Carolina.
That's right.
And participating in that campaign, the efforts all circle up around reducing stigma for people who are traveling through these type of treatment recovery programs in need of these resources. When you look at somebody who needs recovery resources, there's the public perception that's created. And then there's like our perception. With our perception, we see a lot of potential. Oftentimes, we see somebody maybe entering into a realm where if they would throw down the gauntlet of willingness and kind of increase their level of commitment to what's in front of them, that they could really turn this thing around.
Right.
But then there's a whole world of people out there who maybe don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you run into those things ever whenever you're talking about stigma and how people approach the treatment recovery programs?
I think even just the organization that you talked about that you just joined, that's something that just a few years ago we would have said, no way would we be a part of that.
That's true.
Because of how close it aligns with things that at that time we were so close-minded about.
Yeah.
So I would say we see stigma all the time in every area. We're doing two different things now that people might consider opposites, and they both have a stigma of their own. The clinical services that we're providing, you would have a part of a faith-based community see that as something that's unnecessary because all I need is God to help me change and help me turn into a new person, which may work for you. But for many people, what we find is that these clinical services are such a benefit to so many people, even the medical and the medication components of that again, just a few years ago, we would have said, no way. But we were looking at these things as an all or nothing kind of approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make. And I say this with love for whoever's listening, if you feel this way. I think the mistake is just that we're looking at it from the side of extremes. We're saying that, is it going to be all clinical or all medical or all faith-based on this side or all 12-step or all purely educational or only a work program? I don't think any one of those things as the entire solution can work. And all of them have their own stigma because of how they've been applied in the past as a one-size-fits-all solution. but none of them are that thing. I think the reason that we're able to be successful today and why so many people give us the time of day to hear us out is because they see that we're trying to apply a lot of good qualities of many different areas that, even though they have their own stigma, it's like we're just trying to take the good. There's definitely some good in most things that could help a person in some way. Faith-based, 12-step, medical, all of it. Let's find a little bit, whether it's 5-10% of the good of whatever this is, and let's take it and add it to our program. And then collectively, we have this very eclectic program that does so many different things, but it's working so well because if you think about it, that represents our population too. Every person is so different that everybody is going to use a different blend and a different balance of techniques that will work for them. So we just have many different things to serve many different types of people. And I think that maybe is beginning to reduce the stigma that we see along the lines with each of these categories, because people are recognizing that where they might have not given something a second thought years ago, they're seeing how we've applied it in a non-traditional way a little bit differently. And they're saying, oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was. Like I always go back to the MAT thing, like, because of my experience. I had a bad experience with MAT, medication assisted treatment with methadone. And it was because I was prescribed it for a year, that it turned into 2 years, that I ended up going to jail and withdrawing with no support in there. So of course my experience turns my stomach when I think about methadone and MAT. But what about a different medication? We're using Suboxone these days for a much shorter amount of time, that's under a much more disciplined protocol, and it's a 4 to 6 week titration, and it's supported by so much clinical treatment. There's the SACOP program that the residents are going through, that we're finding that most people aren't even engaging with the medication services, with the MAT. Most of them are getting everything they need just from the counseling and the peer support that they're receiving. So it's not even the monster under the bed that we imagined it as. We've introduced it to the program and it became an immediate benefit, but it wasn't like the dam has broken and now we're all drowning. Yeah. It's been like, wow, look how beneficial just a little bit of this thing has been to so many people already.
Yes, that's really good. Talk a little bit to me about how we might have felt like somehow this was tied so closely to our values, and that we were wrestling with the idea when we did this a few years ago. You know, when we first started working towards this program was about 3 years ago. I think officially dropped it in a little over 2 now, right? A little over 2 years ago. Yeah. So for the motivational track program, but we were wrestling with it in a way where we were kind of asking ourselves, we started questioning ourselves, right? We started saying, why do we have a problem with this? Like, what's the issue with that? So kind of like some self-reflection, you and I start having these conversations. Maybe I called you and I was like, what's your problem with medications for opioid
Why do we
use
think
disorder?
about this in this way?
Yeah, why do we
kind of how that conversation
Why do we
went.
think about this?
Right. And we never talked about that before.
No, we never had, because we were, when I say born, we were born into a recovery trajectory that told us what it was. Right. These things are.
I assumed your experience was correct, right, and good, and
me too,
and had value, and you assumed that mine did, and we just said, okay, cool, we align on this.
This is the way it is.
Let's go that way. Yeah, but we never really talked about it or questioned it or looked at it in detail.
No, and so what we really saw was a problem, though, and that problem was we were losing a lot of people. Yeah, and we were losing a lot of people really because of how relevant it is for co-occurring mental health disorders when people come in. And there's a whole different conversation to be had about if those are before or after the drug addiction, because they're both right? But the whole conversation was we're losing so many people because our capacity to create some sort of acclimating period for them was non-existent. Right. They were immediately thrown into a mix that was too overstimulated, too new, too fresh, that they were immediately engaged by things that really weren't supportive to where they currently were in the situation. And we were losing like 1 out of every 4 people who checked into our program. Right. So, when you think about that, we were losing 2 out of every 4, right?
50%, yes. In the first week even. Yeah. So 50% of the people coming into our program, they would quit for one reason or another in that first 7 to 10 days. That was a problem for us.
It was a problem. We were like, man, we're losing so many people that we wanted the chance to be able to minister to and do all of the things. So, and when we started looking at this, we said, well, what's the issue with the clinical intervention program, to introduce psychiatric care and expand our mental health capabilities, expand our medications list, include medications for opioid use disorder in there. And after some back and forth, we figured out, well, there wasn't really anything that challenged our values as Christian recovery centers to step into that. And since we did, the results have been good for us.
That's right. I was actually just talking to another recovery program who's interested in introducing something similar. And they asked us, what do you wish you could go back and ask? And I said, well, nothing really. I think we covered everything very transparently with our current partner. And the things that we talked about were the same things you and I talked about a few years ago in our first conversation. It was, what would compromise our values? It would be if we started talking about it like it's a permanent solution for everybody. Just take this for the rest of your life and you'll be okay. We don't believe that. So that was discussed with our current partner. They said, yeah, we don't believe that either. And the other thing was, if we gave it to everybody, regardless of their level of need, just offered it or even, kind of thrust it into their life, whether they wanted it or not, which, again, a stigma about doctors and overprescribing and all that comes up because of the opioid crisis.
We had a stigma about the medical profession, right? Yeah.
Right. So
prescribers.
Exactly. And then, but talking to our current partner and their prescriber and finding out how closely they aligned with the same things we believe, coming from two totally different backgrounds, we thought, this is like this. We didn't know that this was possible for two organizations with such different backgrounds to align this closely. What if other people in the rest of the world think the same thing just because they're not having the conversation?
They're not having the conversation. Yeah. See, in the version of events that for us became really meaningful was that we saw the results. The 50% dropout rate quickly turned into a 25% dropout rate. So retention increased by 100% after, and it happened pretty quickly after we introduced the clinical.
Within 6 weeks, we saw that immediate drop from 50 to 25%. And this past month, this is a little bit of an anomaly, but September, our motivational track dropout rate was 10%. Wow. So there are months that we're dipping way down, but we're averaging around the 25.
You're saying that this past month, we've retained 90% of the people we've checked into the program past the 30-day mark.
That's right.
That's unbelievable.
It is.
Yeah. And see, what it really is saying is like, and this is where you were talking about the floodgates thing. Like we felt like the dam was going to break loose if we made this an option, but that's not even the case either. Like what we've come to find out is that giving them the choice, of how they participate, there wasn't this mad dash to the line for it's almost like there was a sense of security knowing that they had the option if they needed it.
Yes.
Like there was rest to be found in the idea, but there's something else to be had with that. Like you just feel better knowing it's there.
Right.
Like, isn't that like a human condition?
Yeah. It's almost like the control thing. Like, I could quit anytime I want. It goes into that.
Like I'll keep a pack of cigarettes in my coat pocket in the closet.
That's right.
Because I just feel better knowing that I can grab one.
Right. It's that feeling of powerlessness or helplessness, I think, that drives us to feeling like we need something more.
Yeah.
I watched a video of a guy, off topic, but getting arrested the other day. He's on a motorcycle and he has a helmet on. And he's arguing with the cop and he's doing his thing. The cop ends up putting him in handcuffs. He didn't care about his helmet being on until he was in handcuffs. And all of a sudden he's claustrophobic and can't breathe and feels panicked. And I need you to get this helmet off of me, because he knew at that moment he had no more control to take it off.
He couldn't take his helmet off.
And I thought exactly about that.
That's a great analogy. That's not off topic. That is it, right?
Yes.
So our program really focuses in on self-governance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's impossible to achieve self-governance if you don't try to segue in, reducing the system's influence and increasing the individual's choice.
Mm-hmm.
And we actively train our staff today, even more so with like a referral base for our programs, that some people might come to us. They might say that we're not the place for them. But our conversation that happens there is, brother, we're really committed. We want to find you the right place, right? So tell me why we're not. Here's some options of some other alternatives that we could offer, but you don't give up on recovery.
Right.
You know, you don't step out of it just because you haven't found the right landing spot for you. And there's something really powerful to watch people who reach the place to where they're making the majority of their own choices, and those choices are leading them to the place of their potential. Like they wake up the next morning feeling really proud about the choices that they made yesterday.
You finally get to take credit for it because you made the choice.
Yes, you finally get to take credit for yesterday's good decisions because you actually made them. Right. A system didn't make them for your family, the program, nothing made them for you. You did.
It's like where a lot of people, I will hear people in recovery talk about their clean time, and they'll say, well, I haven't done drugs for 2 years, but I only consider myself sober for 1 year because of that first year I was in jail. So I really didn't have much of a choice. And I think, well, if you try hard enough, no matter where you are, you could mess up somehow.
Right.
But I understand the concept of them feeling like I was under the power of a system where all I did was follow what they told me to do. I couldn't take credit for any of it. I was just wasting away my time. Since I've been here, and then that's the time I'll hear people start their process. It's when they finally decided they were in a place where they couldn't just walk out, where they could just walk out the door at any time if they chose.
Yeah.
Because that's what our program is. If you want to leave, you can leave. We don't force anybody we don't have a lock on the gate that someone has to climb over. There's nothing like that. It's just, if you stick and stay through our program for the entire time, it's because you decided to. Yeah. And every person gets to take full credit for that.
Yeah. And that's a great gift too, that no one else really can claim success for you being really committed to your process. Yeah. There's something redemptive in that. There is something that you transition into being very proud. And maybe that is another thing that forces you into the space that would kind of make you laugh at the behind the Citgo version of yourself. The thing that's like, no, you know what? Those were choices that I made. Those were frustrations that I had in my life. But you know what? I came out the other end and they don't make me cringe anymore.
Right.
Yeah. There's something. I think it's great to be able to share the worst version of you, because when you miss the mark on the worst version of you, people really can't appreciate how far you've come.
No. All they see is what you are today, and they feel like you might not be able, or they can't relate to you is an even worse thing, because I want people to relate to me and see that I was able to find a great wife and, buy a house and have the dog and do all the things I wanted to do in life and have a good job. And I want them to see that they can relate to that type of person. If that's what they want, they can get there. And understanding that we started off in the chair right next to where they are right now. Just because we're farther ahead doesn't mean anything other than we started a little earlier. That's it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I think of when you say something like that, the process of coming to believe.
Yes.
Like when I started out my relationship with God, my commitment to Christ, when I started that out, I thought to myself, okay, I believe. Like it's starting to grow a little bit inside of me. There's this thing, all right, I'm not sure what it is, but like there's this thing where I'm starting to become more and more committed. But then it was like every day that I proved to see the faithfulness, his faithfulness come through. He started to advance my life is what he did. And it was meaningful work, like it truly was. It was a lot of work, but it was very meaningful to watch as we traveled through growing the programs and participating at whatever level it was. Can't believe that we did some of the things that we did back then. They were definitely dangerous. We wouldn't do those today. Like now we got a safety officer and everything, but we made it through.
Just wake up and say, let's move this wall with no plan.
Just let's move. We're paying a little bit for that now with Brunswick County.
If the county is listening, we don't do that anymore.
We don't do that anymore.
We ask for permission and we do it right.
But we would just go through a process. We would make it up, right? And back in the day, it really was all hands on deck, wasn't it? Right. There was 14 of us.
We just wanted to stay busy and do something good.
We just wanted to
see some results for our hard work.
We wanted to stay busy, and do something good. But then there was something that started to blossom from that. And this is what I think. I was coming to believe, like it says in step 2, I was coming to believe that this power that I had found could get better. It could continue to restore me back to sanity. And as I traveled through step 2, I kind of still feel that in step 2 because I know God's not done. Like there's still more to do. And there's this thing in me where I believe a lot. Like I really believe in what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Like I eat, sleep, breathe it. It's in me. I know it is. I know God's proven faithful. I know Christ is continuing to cause us to be more effective inside the programs. He wouldn't have trusted us to grow this way. But then there's this thing in me where I know that there's a deeper place to go. Mm-hmm. Like there's still more to come. I think that's important for people to have that. I have that thing inside of me where I look around and I think how amazing it is, but while I can be content with it, I'm not satisfied with it.
Right. I love the idea that we can still be surprised by things that come up and happen and successes that we have.
That's a great point.
Just before this talk, we had a meeting with a group of people that were offering resources and supplies and ideas for things that we're just amazed
just tell them what it is, Tyler. It's the farm.
That's right. We're starting the farm.
The farm is coming. Yeah, the farm is coming to life, that's right, man. Yeah, and that just happened.
Just being able to use a piece of equipment that we couldn't have dreamed of affording or renting or buying or touching even, or somebody trusting us with the keys to it even for 5 minutes. And now we're going to be able to use that to start something that's going to be able to help so many people. And I'm still surprised to this day when someone comes and offers that type of a resource to us.
Yeah. Yeah. When I watch what God's doing and the ability to be surprised by it still, it shows you that there's something more.
Right. It reinforces that belief.
It's outside continuously. It's outside of our expectations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the gratitude piece, and this is really where everything leads to, I think. The happiest people are the most grateful people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get to experience true peace and joy in my life. And one of the things that, talked about were people who don't have to have things so quickly.
Right.
There's this thing in me that's really proud that I hung in there, took the time, didn't rush it, paid attention, got the most out. There's this thing like where you're coming out of a life of regret and then you struggle because, man, your whole journey coming out of a life of regret is now speckled with all of these other regrets. And most of the time it's because you were too quick to move on things. You should have stayed still and learned the lesson. You should have zeroed in. You should have honed your skills. Right. But there's so much gratitude that I have because looking back, sometimes I was miserable, wishing that we could go because 2013 all the way up to 2019, we were stuck in Ash with just that campus.
Right.
Just
that many beds. No more.
Bro, nope. I remember my parents in like 15, 16 trying to convince okay, Josh, like the first year I'd call and I'd be like, hey, yeah, doing good, sober, this, and this. For the first year or two, they were really happy. Like, wow, you go, Josh. You're still sober. We're so proud of you. You're not smoking crack behind the Citgo anymore. You're really doing it. But like by year 3 and 4, and I was still there in Ash with my little hat, driving my little bus around, they'd be like, okay, do you think that it's probably time to do something?
When are you going to get a real job?
When are you going to get a real job?
That was the question. I remember getting the same impression from my parents.
Yeah.
They thought I was just still in rehab 3 years later.
Okay, yeah, at summer camp.
No, but until we expanded the thing that we took over, we took over this recovery center. It was already in functioning good condition with 14 beds. And, that we couple a leadership with that space, that campus. Everything was as it was. And it wasn't really until we grew it beyond that we finally started being able to, I don't want to say take credit for something, that's not the right term, but for people around to be able to see that we were really pushing something that was already good into becoming something great.
Yeah, we created something.
That's right.
Yeah, and that there's a lot of, I hold that close to me. Mm-hmm. I really do. And when things get tough today, because it does get tough, sometimes I'm scared, just making payroll every 2 weeks. Right, you know what I mean? It's a big number now, so like with all of the folks who work here, with all the facilities, with all the liabilities, you take pause over this thing and you still need such a heavy dose of grace to be able to travel through it. But that kind of stuff that we're talking about from back in the day, it keeps you. Like it truly keeps you centered, and you just know that he's done it so far, and there's no reason to believe that he won't just keep doing it. And I say this all the time, but man, I'm so grateful that he chose to trust us the way that he has to be able to touch so many lives. And he really has trusted us. You know, the way that he sent people with resource to invest in the ministry, the way he's created opportunities for us, you know, what he's done in our lives personally, you know, watching us come from behind the Citgo, watching us come from behind the parking garage at the methadone clinic, you know, watching us come from those places to where we are now. We kind of could create a badge and wear those things on our chest and be really proud of that kind of history that we drag behind us, so that people can see it. Yeah. Well, now, all right. So this is a question that on everybody's mind. What's the address to the garage? Yeah. What's the address to the parking garage?
Oh,
where's the? We're gonna get Seeley to pop in, to wake up and pull up. I want to see.
Yeah.
I want to see the
4th
spot
Street
on
in
Google
Winston-Salem.
Maps.
If you look up Insight on 4th Street, and then you turn around to the other side of the road, you'll see a parking garage.
4th Street in Winston-Salem.
That's right. And I don't know if you'll be able to see the back side of it, but there were some bushes. Now, this is almost 10 years ago, but there were some bushes along the back.
So the bushes might be gone.
Maybe. Yeah. But it was a half wall. And so, see, I was afraid to sleep in the parking garage, you know, actually inside with a roof, because there was a security guard. You know, you're always afraid of someone finding out where you are and kicking you out. When you're a homeless person, there's nowhere that you belong. Even when I would go to the shelter, it would be full, you know, or I didn't show up early enough, or there was a time when I came during the day and they let me go inside and take a shower. Yeah. And I felt so grateful for that. Just a shower. And then they gave me a couple snacks. But, you know, I'm trying to stay away from society as a homeless person at that point. Yeah. And between the wall and the bushes, nobody could see me. So again, it goes back to that hiding, shame, you know, staying behind the wall. I remember waking up just as the sun was coming up one morning. And again, it was cold outside. It had started to drizzle and I wasn't under anything. So I got up. It's probably 5:30 in the morning or so. I remember it just being early. And I was just walking around the city, just looking for something. And I found a big piece of wood behind a dumpster somewhere a couple blocks away. So here I am, you know, homeless Tyler, dirty, hadn't eaten, hungry, just dragging this piece of wood through downtown Winston-Salem. No, it's on 4th Street in downtown. Yeah, this is on the other side. Downtown Winston-Salem. But I'm dragging through downtown this big piece of plywood that I found, and I finally get it back and angle it behind these bushes, and I set it down and I lean it against the wall, and now I have this little triangle to sleep under. But it was only 4 feet wide. Yeah. So my head and my feet were both sticking out, and I'm trying to curl up under this thing. And I think back to that time often. It's the place, it was the Insight Methadone Clinic. It was not called the Methadone Clinic, but Insight was the name, and it was a place to go to get MAT services. I don't know if it's still there or not, but Insight on 4th Street in Winston.
This is 2016, 10 years ago.
It was a while ago.
Could be. Yeah. But I mean, have you ever been back to that spot before?
No, I haven't been
Never.
back. Nope.
Wow. Yeah. You've been to Winston-Salem since?
I've been not in that area, but my family lives outside of Winston-Salem. Yeah. They were in the Walkertown area. Now they're up near like Stokesdale, which is a little bit further away. So I don't find myself in Winston-Salem much, but driving down Highway 52, going to like Virginia and things like that, I see the exit for MLK, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. Street, and I see the old police headquarters for the Winston-Salem Police Department. Yeah. I see the old soup kitchen, and I always think back to that
pan back
time.
Around where that knee wall is.
No, that's not. This isn't in downtown. So I don't know. I'd have to find it. Oh, it's across from Foothills Brewery. Look up Foothills Brewery, and it'll be 2 doors down from that.
How are you going to forget, Tyler? How are you going to forget there's a Foothills Brewery?
Well, they didn't let me inside, really.
Oh, okay. All right.
I wanted to go use their bathroom, and they let me go in a couple times, but eventually they figured it out. So Foothills Brewery.
There's a parking garage right there.
That way. It would be, yeah, it should be that way. Keep going. That's the parking garage right there. It would be behind that. Insight is across the street and down like 2 doors from
Look
that.
at that.
So that's the parking garage.
That's your behind the Citgo.
That I used to slip in. Yep. And then go out straight through the backside of that. You see how? I don't know if I can stand up. You can see some lights right here.
Yeah.
That's that half wall. So right on the other side of that half wall right there.
Oh my God. So that, hey.
I haven't seen that in years.
I was going to say, that's the behind the Citgo.
That's it. That's my Citgo.
That's your Citgo. All right. So this is what I want.
I'm proud of it.
I want to show you the Citgo. Okay. This is the one thing that I have planned for us. All right. I want to show you the Citgo. Sealy's going to pull it up out of his email real quick. And I got this. This is what I think about. I have been back here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When I've been home. When I moved my dad, I drove by. And it doesn't make me cringe anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't get this is what I don't get anymore. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like when you think of it, the
turning
shudder.
stomach feeling.
Yes.
Where it's almost like the way, and anybody who's ever been through an addiction will know exactly what I'm talking about. That feeling on the way to go get drugs. And as you get it right before you can't get it in your body fast enough. It's almost like you're feeling sick on the way to get it. A similar feeling to that is what I would feel driving by certain things in that first year.
Yeah. Yeah. You get the ick.
Yes,
kind of like a cotton ball squeezing together.
Like I want to get sick. Yes. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So Sealy, turn left. That's the store. Turn left at the light. I don't see the Citgo branding anymore, but okay. Turn left at the light. Oh, look, there's new housing development. Pan around. Okay. You see the behind there? Yeah. Okay. So my dude's house was right here down the street. Okay. I would walk down here and that's where I would pinch off the road and I would go back there. There used to be a dumpster that was right back there and I would stand back there and I'd smoke.
Back in the cut.
In the cut.
That's right.
Yeah. I'd be back in the cut.
Yeah. That's a good hiding spot.
Bro, it was a good hiding spot.
I could see that.
Yep. It was a good hiding spot.
But it really is. It's the first place you can get to because you just can't get it in your body fast enough.
Yeah, you're desperate, man.
I need to feel better. Yeah.
And so the theme behind the podcast was that we would start to make sure that people kind of understood a lot of what we talked about today, the unseen world behind addiction, recovery, and what the pathway forward looks like for people.
That's right.
So how does it feel to know that you were on the first episode?
Feels great. Yeah. Feels natural, but it just feels like this is kind of what we've been heading towards, is learning all that we've been learning for all these years so that we can turn around. And just like at the end of the 12 steps, when you turn around and take everything you learned and you just use it to help somebody else.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
I'm really grateful that you had this chat with me, and it was a good chat, a little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right. So this is the very first episode. What a special treat for you all to tune in with us and have this conversation. Once again, Tyler Smith, sober since 2016, Chief Operating Officer of Christian Recovery Centers, a 250 residential bed treatment, recovery, and reentry program. But this guy used to live behind the parking garage.
That's right.
Across the street from the methadone clinic.
That's
Amen.
right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm grateful you tuned in with us. Thanks for tuning in. Behind the Citgo. We'll see you next time.